What is up, hack fans? Simon here. Welcome to HannaTalk. Hope you're all doing fantastic. On around the first month of 2021, today I am here with another special guest. Now, he is an actor who is best known to fans as Owen from Hack GU, but he's also best known from other series such as Persona 5, Bleach, Ever After High, Digimon, Naruto, Code Geass, the Fate series, the Marvel and DC Universe, and so much more. Please welcome the amazing Jamieson Price.
Hi.
How are
Nice
you,
to be here.
Nice to meet you too, Jamieson. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well, all things told, with the lockdown, global lockdown. Yeah, things are pretty bad here in LA. We have surging numbers, and so they're just encouraging us to go nowhere. So there's a lot of stay-at-home stuff now.
That's definitely the case with a lot of us around the world at the moment, which actually goes into my first question. During this time, obviously, with what's been happening with the pandemic since last year, how have you been keeping things up, especially on the acting side of things?
Oh, well, when we first went into lockdown, everything stopped. Studios were scrambling, trying to figure out how they were going to move forward. Because we couldn't go into the studios, we couldn't do much. Um, Most professional voice actors do have a home studio so that we can audition for things. Some just use their iPhones, but I built a pretty decent studio and with professional gear. So when the studios were reaching out to voice actors and saying, "Hey, send us samples and what have you got? What is your technical specs for your studios?" Um, I was right up there and was able to work. I just had to purchase some professional software so that I could connect remotely with studios, such as kind of we're connecting now. We're not just doing Skype or Zoom. We actually are using something called Source Connect, which we've all had to learn how to use, and it allows us to connect with a high quality audio signal. So we began working remotely with studios, and as studios ramped up and started to understand the COVID protocols that the government was putting out and medical people were putting out and union people were putting out. A lot of the studios now have good COVID protocols in place, so there is some limited, very distant going into the studio, and the director or producers or writers all have to call or Skype or Zoom in. It's just an engineer and the actor, and we're behind in different rooms anyway, so lots of filtering the air and time between actors. They've been very good about it.
Fantastic. And that definitely seems to be the case with like what a lot of voice actors have been doing nowadays. But even before the pandemic struck, how they've set up like home studios as a way to continue that work going. And
Yeah,
as
well,
many,
it's kind of funny because I had a job back in November. Um, we recorded November, December, and I had been contacted, excuse me, by a director in New York and was wanting to do this podcast. And so we ended up, the female lead was in London. I'm here in LA. The director and the sound designer were in New York. And that's where I first got into Source Connect. We all got on the same um, microphone thing, channel situation, so we could all hear each other in real time. And then I recorded mine on my computer, and so did the London actress. And then we sent our files in, and the sound designer and the director did this for all of the actors. And I'm amazed at how well the sound designer was apparently did a lot of documentary work, so he was very used to taking audio from disparate places and trying to make it sound like it was in the same room. Because that's the hardest thing when you're working on remote recording actors. We're all in different acoustic environments, some with different microphones, um, different mic preamps and things. So the sound isn't quite the same. It doesn't sound like you're in the same room. And that's the hardest part about putting together you know, a game or any kind of animated series, anything that we're doing with remote recording. So I actually got a jump on that back at the end of last year before everything hit the fan here.
Absolutely. I think that's definitely the case for like as you mentioned about before with like having to work across in especially like working two completely different rooms on opposite especially on opposite ends of the world, like having to work on animated projects for that matter. Because animation, as far as I know, with what's happened with the pandemic, was kind of the one industry that hasn't stopped. That's kind of kept going in that sense. But we had to all adapt with
Yeah.
especially with voice actors, like having to adapt with doing recording their lines, matching vocal flaps on that sort of level from kind of their own home in some way, as opposed to doing it in a studio with the director on one side and also the screen up in front of you at the same time.
Well,
So
we would get the screen, we would do the video for matching flaps. And you're right, it was really tough and still is, because you get the video coming in over Skype or Zoom. We're doing the audio over Source Connect or IPDTL or Connection Open, a bunch of different softwares. So the the audio is going through really nicely. The video, because it's on Zoom or Skype, is slightly delayed. And I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, and we are very careful about trying to match sync. And so you do the line, and I'm like, I'm not on sync because it doesn't look right. And at the other end, the engineer puts it together and goes, no, you did it, you're good. And so I had to learn not to trust my eyes, but just watch the preview, because they give us a preview in the original language, and you look at it and go, okay, think I got it, think I got the rhythms. You give it a shot. It looks terrible from my end, but you know, those years pay off, and it syncs up.
fantastic. That's absolutely wonderful. Now let's get started with talking about with looking at the origins of how you started. How did you get started in acting?
Oh, I started many years ago when I was a kid, actually, in school. Started doing theater and really enjoyed it. Uh, it was never at that point gee, I want to do this as my career. Um, Partially because my parents were very realistic and went, a career in acting is a real risk. You should be a lawyer or a doctor, the usual things. And but I did it through most of my education through high school. When I got into college, I stopped because I had to get serious and be academic. Um, but I missed it, so I started doing student productions because they were like if you did a main stage production, there was a lot of rehearsal involved, and it was very, you had to be here during these times, and that didn't work out with an academic schedule. But the student productions, we would rehearse whenever. It was usually 2 or 3 people. It was much smaller. So I did those for, I guess, freshman and sophomore years. So about a year and a half of just kind of doing student stuff, and having people go, when are you going to audition for main stage? And at that same time, I was having problems in physics and calculus, and realizing that, maybe I should do a different career. And I ended up switching over to theater and graduated with a BFA in theater. And yeah, so then started working before I graduated doing living history. I was I went to school at College of William and Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia. So there's a lot of colonial things around there, and I did some living history stuff, which was very interesting, because I was never much of a history buff, but when I started researching it from a first-person point of view, and the Park Service there was very good and let us, I read, first-hand accounts of the Revolutionary War, and we created different acting pieces that we could interact with people coming into the parks. There were actually old houses that were in Yorktown and Williamsburg. So anyway, it was really wonderful and really enjoyed that. From there, bounced to a regional theater in Columbus, Ohio that we started, and from there got into outdoor drama. I started doing outdoor drama work, again, historical kind of stuff. And that was during the summers because it was an outdoor drama sort of thing. Winters I would do regional theater, did musicals in Florida. I spent a winter in Chicago, of all things, couldn't do any acting because the equity productions there, it was really tough to break into. But I did a lot of scenery construction and set work, theater tech work, and so began to develop a side career as a theater technician, and that has stood me in good stead because a lot of times actors will work for free, but you've always paid the theater technicians. And from then, I was looking, after I'd kind of done regional theater for about 10 years or so, looking to go back to school. And so I started researching graduate programs, and I ended up at Cal State Long Beach, right here in LA, or just below LA, and got my master's in acting and did a lot of work around here and some 99-seat theater work. And then about the same time, right after I graduated, I was doing a show down here in Long Beach, and was doing a show with Dorothy Fawn of Digimon and many other things fame. And Dorothy was like, I'm doing this anime stuff, and I think you'd be good at it. So she introduced me to the right people, and I started working, and then it kind of exploded exponentially, and I went, oh, well, that's, that door just opened up, and now that's my career, is voice acting. I do still do some on-camera stuff here and there, but for the most part, it's just voice now.
Fantastic. That's absolutely wonderful. And that's really great to hear about, like, how you've had so much experience in every aspect of with theater production, but also having that stage experience as a way to help you with your voice acting career down the line. And that seems to be the case with a lot of actors that have had that live action experience and stage experience, and also still continue to do the live action work even as they've gone on to become voice actors. It's just fantastic. And they're also the case of some voice actors that have started purely in the voice scene but have not had that stage experience. I think there was an interview I did with Danielle McRae, who was who was one of the voices on the Detective Pikachu video game, on how she started, like, she got into voiceover work like straight off the bat. Like, she didn't have prior acting experience on stage and such. But it's really fantastic to know that, like, it doesn't matter what experience you have, a lot of these actors go into voice acting, and just having that experience is just amazing.
Yeah, acting is acting, and the voice acting is just a kind of a different aspect of that. I mean, when we're working on stage, it's a different aspect and a different kind of style of acting, say, than if you're doing film or TV. And then there's different, genres if you're doing a soap opera, if you're doing a science fiction movie, if you're doing some kind of action adventure thing, or historical. Everything, they all have different flavors, but it all boils down to just, acting and having that kind of overactive imagination and being able to put yourself into a given set of circumstances with the parameters of a character, and to breathe life into that. That doesn't really change across the different genres of acting.
Absolutely, that's definitely true in that regard, and of course and also you spoke a fair bit about, like, with like, of course, where your acting experience has started to where it is now. Like, who would you consider to be like your acting influences? Who or what inspired you to go into acting?
Oh, well, I started in the 4th grade, so it was. There's no real kind of, oh, I should, I wanted to do that. Well, maybe if I think back about it, there was an ACT production, American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco, because I grew up in Berkeley, California, and they did a production of Taming of the Shrew. It's commedia dell'arte style, so it was very, very physical, very funny, and I mean that was very impressive to me at a young age, and that may have sparked some of, gee, I want to do that. But in influences over the years, Richard Burton was a big influence when I was younger. The Burton O'Toole, Alec Guinness, those British actors were just phenomenal for me, and how, well, some of them, Burton really didn't disappear too much in his work. He was kind of always Richard Burton. But Alec Guinness in particular, could just be anybody. It was amazing, his work. So I was impressed a lot by the British school, not so much by the American method acting, and the star kind of, which were, Tom Cruise pretty much stays Tom Cruise. You don't see him become somebody else totally different, like Daniel Day-Lewis. Oh my God, his range, and he disappears completely into things. Very, very impressive, and something I would aspire to, being able to disappear so much into a character that, you don't see me anymore, you see the character.
That's fantastic. That's absolutely wonderful. And now, as many fans will know, going across into the anime work, now as many fans will know that generally most anime series is based on manga. Have you ever read the manga for any anime series that you ever worked on, or you've heard or became familiar of a project before you started working on that series?
No, unfortunately, I never got into manga. I read comic books as a kid, but it was before manga before manga became popular here, and I knew very little about anime when I got into it. Um, it was very interesting because the studio, the director, producer that Dorothy introduced me to, was the gentleman who was basically responsible for bringing manga, anime dubbing and everything, um, subtitling and then dubbing into English. He was instrumental in that. He worked in a manga shop here, apparently, in LA, and so I knew very little about it. Early on in my career, I was doing, well, Akira was a big one that I had no idea what that was, and played the Colonel in it, and it's an iconic anime. And oh gosh, there were some other ones. I can't remember that one. Oh wow, it's blanking. Anyway, so I was in a number of things that were Cowboy Bebop before I knew what they were, and never read the manga. Never have had much time to, well, to even watch a full series of things that I'm in or video games that I'm in. I just don't have the time to put into going through all of it.
No, that's absolutely fantastic. That's just great. This actually reminds me of an interview I did last year with Joshua Seth, who you obviously know from Digimon, because of the fact both you and Dory fan and have both worked with him together. In that he spoke about how he got the advice from one actor who said, "Don't read ahead, just be surprised." So he would walk into any role that he would do, whether it was based on manga or not, just having no idea about what to expect in the story and where his character was going.
Oh yeah.
So that definitely seems to.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I don't know. But on the other end of that side, you've also got actors like Aaron Roberts and Amberly Connors, who are huge fans of that sort of stuff. Who actually, Aaron Roberts said to me when I interviewed him last year, where he said, "I actually read the manga for this one anime I watched. I think it might have been Fire Force or something." Because he said, "I want to give off the best performance I can, even though it's basically dubbing at the end of the day. I still want to give off the best performance I can," because he read through the material. He would have an idea for where his character was going. He'd know where the story was going, but at the same time, he'd still want to be surprised as well.
Well, yeah, you as an actor, it's called the illusion of the first time. And even if you're on Broadway or you have a long run and you're doing your 100th performance of the same show, it's not the 100th performance for that audience, and you have to be surprised. Exactly, you have to have the illusion of the first time that you're saying these words. I like research and rehearsal, so if I were able um, to read ahead, I think I would. Uh, Many times we walk into the studio not even knowing what we're working on. Many of these projects have code names, especially the video games. There's code names, you're not aware of what they are. Sometimes you can figure things out from either character names or descriptions. But especially in the anime, the plot lines are unbelievably convoluted, really complicated, um, and if you haven't read ahead and you don't know, the story of Bleach or Naruto, uh, I rely on the director. Um, what's the kind of character that they want? It's a very, I mean, they say film is a very director's medium. A lot of the animated things, especially in this, are because I'm trusting the director to know where the whole thing is going, and how they want things to progress. And the director is the one who then gives me um, the guidance on that character to be. Is he good? Is he evil? Um, is he possessed by something? And there are times when they don't want you to know that. Um, Gunkatsuo, the Count of Monte Cristo that I did, I didn't know that he was possessed by the alien. So there's are surprises that you find out, and sometimes it's good for the actor not to know, because then I'm not trying to play an ulterior motive. I'm trying to play the pure moment of the scene. And but at the same time, it can come down to, if it's really complicated, it's as simple as, do I like this person I'm talking to, or do I not like them? Am I higher status? Am I lower status? I don't try to get too much into the good or evil, because it's hard to play good or evil, but I can certainly play, I don't like this person I'm talking to, and I think they're lower status than I am. And then that comes off as evil. So we rely on the directors for a lot of the information that's needed to craft the character.
Absolutely. That's definitely true in that regard. That actually reminds me of a story, I think, where when Michael Keaton was cast as the Vulture in Spider-Man Homecoming, and he got asked, did you read through any specific Spider-Man comics featuring the Vulture, or even when you played Batman in the Tim Burton Batman movies, did you read any specific comic book stories? And he said, no, I just left that up to Tim Burton and to John Watts to help craft my character. But I did take inspiration from other people that was a similar personality to what conveyed that performance.
Oh yeah. Now, if you can find either, well, hopefully within yourself, but if you can find a spark as an example, this person, um, or this type of person is embodied by this guy that I know, kind of thing, and you can not imitate them, but draw inspiration from that person, and then make it your own, so that it's still grounded in your personality. That's perfectly acceptable, and we do that a lot.
Absolutely. That's definitely true in that regard. That reminds me of the story where when Joaquin Phoenix had gone to play the Joker in the Joker movie, how he said that he did not base his performance off the previous iterations of the Joker, from Heath Ledger or even to Mark Hamill for that matter. He just based it off like his own thing and just finding the laugh himself, similar to how Mark Hamill got started in Batman the Animated Series, how obviously he'd grown up as a big comic book fan, and how he'd said, I just drove through the streets of LA just trying to find that laugh. And lo and behold, he wanted to become one of the definitive versions of the Joker.
Yeah. If you can find it organically within yourself, it's going to ring true. And that makes it all the better.
Absolutely. That's definitely true in that regard. And now, talking about some of the most notable work you've done. Now, my first series, which introduced me to your work, was from Bleach as Chad Saito. What was it like playing that character and in the series?
really interesting. It was a lot of fun. It was a little tough because he's, a lot younger. So, oh, you want me to? Okay. So playing a high schooler in my 40s. But I mean, he's very, very action-oriented, very powerful kind of warrior guy, and not a man of too many words. So um, he was an interesting character, and I enjoyed playing him. It was again a very convoluted plot, and so there was things where the director is explaining things to me, and I'm like, okay, trying to figure out what the Soul Reapers were and what was going on at any given time, except that it was mostly, we're battling against the forces of evil and a little heroic kind of stuff, but. It's a lot of fun, and it's to do something that's that long lived, and that you keep coming back to episode after episode is unusual. Yeah, because a lot of times we do things and it's a one-off or it's very short-lived, but to come back and do episode after episode, the character grows on you, and you're able to kind of live in him a little bit more, or let him live in you.
Absolutely, that's definitely true in that regard. I think, and for me personally, as you mentioned about before with Bleach, how it's a very action kind of anime in that regard. It was, for me, when I first saw it the first time, I thought you did a fantastic job as Chad, and the series was probably one of the best action anime I've ever seen before. It was so fantastic. And just the fact to learn about how it focused on the backstory of, like, obviously the main characters and most of the Soul Reapers, but also focusing on the backstory of the villains as well, like giving them a much bigger arc and making them much more complex as characters.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, characters are much more interesting when you can provide that backstory, and when you can have and see the arc of why somebody became one way or the other. It allows us, I think, to, as an audience member, identify more, even with a villain, because you gain an understanding and a certain empathy for those characters.
Absolutely, that's definitely true in that regard. And as you mentioned about before, with Bleach having a very convoluted plot because of how intense the mythology is in that regard, it has been mostly marketed as a very big action anime. I think one of the top, I think of it back then at that time when it was done at the time, was one of the top 3 anime at that time. Next to, I think Naruto was on that list as well, and it was definitely one of the longest running anime at that time. Next to obviously Naruto, Digimon, Naruto, Detective Conan, and now One Piece, of course, hitting that list as well, which is just amazing. And at least that's as far as what I know. And another bit of an interesting story I have to mention, but there was an interview I did with Richard Epcar, who you obviously worked on Bleach alongside you, as well as a whole bunch of other work. We spoke a fair bit about when he did the voice of the Joker in the Injustice games, and how he said that he had never heard Mark Hamill's version of the Joker, and said he doesn't want to, because he doesn't want to subconsciously take inspiration from Mark Hamill's Joker, which is...
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's... you can screw yourself up, because all of a sudden you get an idea in your head of somebody else's performance. Unless you're trying to, replace someone or continue a character that's been established before. But if you're allowed to do your own take, as Richard, as they all were for their interpretation of Joker, yeah, you don't want to listen to somebody else. You want to find that organically in yourself.
Absolutely. I think that also goes back to an interview with Todd Phillips, who directed the Joker movie, on how you mentioned about before, with having read comic books as a kid and being a comic book fan, how he spoke about with regards to comic books, like wrestling with the whole legacy aspect of the Joker, how he said, I see comic books as like the American Shakespeare. There's more than one version of Hamlet. There's more than one version of Romeo and Juliet. There's going to be more than one version of Batman and the Joker. It's just a matter of interpretation, really.
Yeah.
So that's definitely true in that regard. And speaking about, of course, with Bleach, now there was an announcement that was made, I believe it was last year, or I think it was the year before that, that they're finally doing a revival of the Bleach series, adapting the final arc from the manga, the true ending to the story, which I thought was just absolutely crazy. I did not expect that there would be more story to be told with the Bleach franchise. When Bleach ended at that time, did you feel like that there was more story to be told with the franchise, or do you feel like that everything was said and done by the time the last episode came around?
Oh, I don't know. It was a while ago, and I want to remember that I felt it was a little abrupt. Um, but I mean, trying to follow the story, I didn't have the whole because I hadn't watched the whole thing. Um, so I don't know if it didn't wrap up properly or not. I know how it wrapped up within this series and if that was satisfactory or not.
Well, I think personally for me, where the anime had ended at that point, because it ended around the arc when I think Ichigo had gotten his abilities back from the series, and at that point in the series, after the whole battle with Aizen, and I feel like it ended on a moment that was kind of satisfactory to everybody. But then when I read about them doing the final arc from the manga, which is incredibly intense, like the biggest action kind of anime, but it also has really big ties to Derek Stephen Prince's character Uryu in that regard. I went like, oh wow, and I felt like we have to get an adaptation of this. They have to do a revival of this. Cut to last year or the year before that, it was announced I think by the creator of the manga saying we're doing an adaptation of the final arc from the manga. So I
Wow.
yes, I was absolutely shocked. I did not expect that they would do that, but I feel like it just goes to prove, like, especially with any sort of manga or anime series that has got a really big history behind it, or has got such a really big following behind it, especially on a series that you feel like hasn't been given the proper ending or closure that it needed. It's just all it takes is the power of the fans to say, we want this series adapted. Let's get it happening.
Yeah, well, that's great. I mean, it's the fan driven. I mean, if the fans want it and they're going to pay for it, then the producers are going to make it. Um, it comes down to marketing and the market, what the market wants. So it's really nice to see and hear fans, loving it and really wanting to get it to continue on. So
Ab-
that's exciting news.
Absolutely, I think that's definitely true, and I think it shows in the fact that like if they could easily do a revival of the Fullmetal Alchemist series into Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood and do a full-on reboot of Fruits Basket and get back all the original cast members from both those shows into those remakes, then I'd say for Bleach the same thing is going to happen, and I can't wait to see it. It's going to be amazing. So I'm really looking forward to it. And speaking about, of course, with other anime works, you've also played across other long-running anime, as we've mentioned about before, like Digimon, but also across Naruto, and you've also played across in other shows such as Code Geass and the Fate series. What was it like working across those projects?
Well, again, a lot of fun when you can work with a character over time and over multiple episodes, and in different situations, you can explore so much more of the character, and it's just it's enjoyable as an actor to be able to play. That's what we love to do, you know. So getting the chance to do it over a multiple episode arc is a lot of fun. It's very satisfying as an actor.
Absolutely, that's absolutely fantastic, and that's definitely true. Now, as many people will know, we've of course have the Boruto series, which is the sequel to the Naruto series, and we now have the Digimon reboot that's happening based on the first Digimon series. And is there the possibility we'll get to see you come back in either in the Digimon or Naruto universe or any of those series if the chance arose?
Well, certainly if the chance arises, if they want, if they hire me, I'm available. Um, I audition all the time, almost on a daily basis. The auditions are going out, not just for animation, but also other projects. So it's just a matter of whether or not the creators, the producers, who they pick, and sometimes fans do get a bit of a influence in there, um, but it does come down to the creators, what voice that they want to hear.
Absolutely. That's definitely true, and that would be fantastic. Now, the other series that you're also best known for is for Ever After High as Milton Grimm. What was it like playing that character and in that series?
Milton was a lot of fun. Um, high school principal. Uh, um, again, it's fun to play with an arc. Um, and Milton had secrets, and secrets are always fun to play with. And it was a joy. A lot of fun. Um, the director on that's a good friend, and he did wonderful work with us, and kind of putting that whole thing together. And I loved the premise. Uh, just was kind of fun with the whole fairy tale alternate universe kind of exploration.
That's fa- that's absolutely fantastic. That's definitely fantastic. Now, the other franchises that you're also best known for playing in, and you mentioned about this quite a fair bit, is being part of the Marvel and DC universe, particularly in the new Avengers game as Abomination, but also being part of the Marvel anime series, and also starring in the DC live action universe in Shazam as playing multiple characters in that. What was it like stepping into that comic book universe?
Well, that's just a dream come true. The Marvel universe, when I got cast as Abomination, and I did mocap on it too, so it was all kind of performance capture work. It was just so much fun to do. Um, mocap is really interesting when you kind of get to see, especially I could see what I looked like on the monitors, and then you have to kind of act within that feeling. And it has its own drawbacks when you're having to talk to people and they're at different heights, and you have to talk to their feet instead of their eyes. But that was a lot of fun, and Abomination was again an interesting character. Um, and I didn't know a whole lot about Abomination, so that was something that I did do some research on to kind of make sure that I was, um, you know, honoring the the comic book history and the persona. Uh, so that was a great one. Getting to do some work as Surtur in some of those games was a lot of fun. In the Shazam, I was just many different characters within the crowd scenes and stuff. It's called being a part of a loop group, um, and so we were whatever they needed us to be, and that's I've done several different loop group jobs, and it's a challenge in itself because you're having to come up with a lot of stuff on the spot and trying to figure out, okay, now we're in this restaurant, and then you have to have restaurant stuff for and then office. We have to come up with office stuff, and so you have things prepped ahead of time as to generic things that you can say. Not that they're ever really going to be heard, but if they are, they have to be, appropriate, but not identifiable as any given place or time or okay. So it's a very vague kind of acting that you have to do. But it's fun to give life to those small characters that are walking down the sidewalk or having coffee in the corner while the principal actors are mic'd and they're doing their scene. But no, these people over here have a life too.
Absolutely, that's definitely fantastic, and that's definitely true in that regard. And now, as many fans will know, that with the return of the X-Men and the Fantastic Four into the Marvel movies, and now with the return of Abomination in the She-Hulk TV show, are there any particular Marvel or DC characters that you want to see adapted for live action?
Oh, uh, gosh, they've done a lot of them. I mean, what the Marvel Studios have been able to do, bringing those comics to life is just nothing short of phenomenal. Love those movies. Um, I'm sorry, nothing comes to mind that right off the bat that I can come up with an answer for that one.
No, that's perfectly fine. I think personally for me, I think I think because of them bringing the X-Men and the Fantastic Four into the universe, I'd really love to see them do Mr. Sinister for the X-Men movies, even do Galactus, like the true comic book Galactus for the Fantastic Four movies. I feel like those are the kind of characters, and I feel like this is where Marvel and DC are starting to go nowadays, especially DC for that matter, is doing characters on screen that haven't really been done on screen before, because we've had so many Batman movies, we've had so many Superman movies over the years,
That's
but
true.
we've had, and I think this is the case with them doing a full-on Green Lantern TV series, is saying, yeah, we've done some good Batman movies, done some good Superman movies. Let's do an amazing Green Lantern series, or let's say, Mr. Plastic as a film. So they're sticking with characters that really haven't been given the screen time that they deserve, or characters that just haven't been done on screen full stop. And that's what I think is really exciting about that, is them getting to do characters that people haven't seen on screen for the first time. So I think that's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I mean, they've discovered that there's a market and that we will go see those movies, and it doesn't have to just be Batman or Superman. Um, so allowing the entire universe to make it into live action, or even more animation, and with the kind of production values that are possible now, it's exciting to see. And no, those are some of my favorite movies. That kind of
Absolutely.
wonderful action adventure superhero movie.
That's absolutely fantastic, and that's definitely true. And will we hope to see you make a live action appearance in a Marvel movie or TV show down the line?
I would hope that. But my on-camera career didn't take off the same way that my voiceover career did. Um, I was reasonably successful on stage in legitimate theater, doing regional stuff. But when I came here to LA, it just didn't fly for me, unfortunately. Luckily, the voice acting did, and I mean, I wouldn't turn it down. It'd be a lot of fun to do when we get back into actual production. I know that production again is coming to a halt here in LA, or they're recommending that it come to a halt, just because our COVID numbers are surging so horribly.
Mm.
But once we get back to actually working, yeah, no, that'd be a lot of fun to do.
Absolutely, that would be fantastic. That would be amazing. Now, you've also played across in various video game projects, such as playing the Count of Monte Cristo, as you mentioned, and I apologize if I mispronounced this name. Again, Kotsu, is that how it's pronounced?
Gunkatsuo, I
Gankatsuo.
think.
Okay. But also played in games such as Persona 5 as Sojiro Sakura, Hakjiyo as Ovan, and of course the Avengers game in Abomination. What was it like playing across the first three games in particular? What was it like playing across in the video game universe?
Well, Count of Monte Cristo was a film, or no, series. I mean, yeah, bunch of different episodes. Okay, um, but not a game. That was a lot of fun. Just an incredible arc to play, and a really interesting take on the story. Uh, that's the revenge that is the Count of Monte Cristo. Um, so video game wise, gosh, the dot hack was a long time ago. Um, it was fun, and we did a lot of different kind of iterations of it, because there were a number of different video games, if I recall correctly, in the dot hack universe. Um, Ovan was a really interesting character, slightly sinister. I mean, there was some stuff going on there, and that was earlier on in my career, I believe, in the early 2000s. Is that when those games were coming out? I think so.
I believe so. I'm not entirely sure myself, but yeah, there's definitely been a lot of hack games like over the years, as far as I
Yeah.
know.
So that was early in my understanding of anime and um, video games and how that's all working together. Um, and then what was the other one that you mentioned?
The other one, Persona 5.
Oh, Persona 5. Yeah, Persona 5 was just a delight. Sojiro is, it's, I mean, he's kind of become a fan favorite, which is wonderful. Um, the coffee dad. Um, Really interesting arc for him because, first off, he's this kind of grumpy old man. Um, but underneath it, he's a bit of a softie. And so really kind of having fun playing that arc of having, having somewhere to go. If you are just trying to play grumpy old man all the time, it gets boring. But if it's grumpy old man and then there's, maybe he's not that, maybe he does really, care and he wants to help out, and finding out who Futaba is and the whole backstory there um, was wonderful. And I'm a dad, so it was, I wouldn't say easy, but I had a lot to draw on and to work with crafting that character. Um, and it's just a lot of fun.
That's fantastic. That's absolutely wonderful. Now, we've had so many video game adaptations over the years, but also a lot of anime adaptations in being adapted for live action. Did you ever watch
Yeah.
like any live action adaptations of video games or anime? And what's been your opinion about properties like that being adapted for live action as opposed to like comic book properties?
I can't recall. I mean, there's none that I would go, oh yeah, I would love to see that adapted for live action. And there are certain limitations I think that live action has that animation, of course, because it's animated, there's no limit. Your imagination is just, you can realize anything, and the artwork that I see in anime, and uh, it's gorgeous and lush, and I just don't know that you could really recreate that um, in live action
Mm.
as satisfactorily as you get it in the animation.
I think that's definitely true in that regard. I mean, we've had so many like live action anime adaptations over the years. The most notable one that comes to me was them doing a live action film on. They're actually doing several live action movies on the Rurouni Kenshin series, which is one other anime that you starred in as
Oh
well,
yeah.
but also for the Bleach movie as well. And they even gone as far back as to get Johnny Young Bosch, Michelle Ruff, most of the actors from the original anime series into that film, and I think they're still developing sequels to that. So,
Huh.
I, so I think I think definitely like if they can manage to break the video game film curse with Detective Pikachu and Sonic the Hedgehog, then I think one day we'll finally see that live action anime movie or show that's gonna finally break that curse.
Yeah. No, it's they'll keep trying, and hopefully they will break that curse because it would be fun um, if they can do it right. And that's what would break the curse is if it was as good as or better.
Absolutely. There was actually a really funny story that I heard about somewhere, and I'm not sure if they're still planning to go ahead with this, but they were planning on doing a live action Akira movie, and they were planning to go after Taika Waititi, who did Thor Ragnarok for the film, to be the one to direct the
Ah.
movie. And he spoke about how he said, I'm going to keep it 100% accurate to the books, and I'm not going to do any white casting for this. I'm going to track down people that will make it authentic to the original production and also like talent that hasn't been discovered yet. So he had an idea for where he wanted the live action movie to go. I think it's kind of been put on hold, but it's still totally possible for it to happen at some point. And if he gets to be the one to do it, that would be amazing.
It would be. He is a fantastic director. I love his work. He comes at it from a totally different direction, and he succeeds beautifully.
Absolutely. That's definitely true. That would be amazing. And where do you hope to see yourself with regards to acting in the long run?
Well, still acting. I hope to continue doing this. I mean, there's well, as long as I can talk, uh, and on camera, whenever I can, kind of stuff. Um, but this, and especially now with the pandemic, being able to continue to work is just a blessing. Um, I can still pay rent, which is more than some people. So I count my blessings on that one. But so continuing to work, especially as I'm getting older, is also a blessing. And there's there are so many jobs in this world where you do age out, and they're like, oh, now you're too old. We want somebody younger. In the acting world, you just move to a different. Now I'm going to play these older roles. I don't go out for the 20-something roles. I'll still go out for the late 30s. But I'll go out for the 16, 70-year-olds as well.
Fantastic. That's absolutely fantastic. And looking across at your entire career and all the roles that you've done, what would you say has been like the one role that resonates with you the most?
Oh. The one role that resonates with me the most. I mean, each role resonates with a different aspect of your own personality. I mean, that's kind of what we draw on and find that kernel within that we can develop into that character. I mean, I resonate very a lot with the dad characters, Sojiro, Nier, some of those that have families, and that's very important to me. Ryder from Fate Zero was an interesting. He resonated with a different part of me that I kind of, not that I didn't know I had, but he's very boisterous and opinionated and outgoing, and arrogant. But there was, I mean, a note of truth or whatever. Something rang within me. I mean, that people loved that role, and his joy of life and everything was inspiring, and I think that resonated for me. The Count of Monte Cristo, the Count was another one that resonated in a different way. So God, there's no one that I can pick that would say, this resonated with me the most. They all have different bits of
me. Fantastic. No, that's absolutely wonderful. And having acted across like many iterations of the acting industry, from live action now primarily to voiceover work, what's been your opinion or view on where the voice acting industry stands within the entertainment industry?
Well, it's very interesting. Voice acting has grown up a lot, I think, in the last 20 years, and is much more prominent now. There are a lot of celebrities doing it. Partially, I think they are enjoying it and are good at it. Partially because it's a little bit easier, perhaps. I really focused in on the voice acting in the early 2000s because my son was born. My daughter was born in the mid-90s, and I was busy working and auditioning and doing shows. And there are, I wasn't gone all the time, but there were significant portions of her childhood where I was gone, a lot. And kind of, I missed that. And when my son was born, my voice acting career was really exploding. And instead of, you have to be on set at 6 a.m. and you're going to be done at 11 p.m. and you're sitting in your trailer all the time, except for the few moments you're on set. In voice acting, it's, when are you available, Mr. Price? Oh, well, I'm available from 10 to 2 because I've got to take my son to school and pick him up for after school. okay, fine, I will schedule this time, and you get the day rate, you know, and so for me it was like, wow, this is much better. So it encouraged me to continue with the voice acting, and at that point, I mean, back in the 90s and even the early 2000s, I mean, there's still a dubs versus subs, uh, not rivalry, but discussion that goes on where some people prefer the subtitled to the dubbed. And I mean, that's a fine preference. And when we're doing the dub, are listening to the original actor and trying to honor what they brought to it. We're not trying to go off on a totally different tangent. So we are honoring what they're doing, but then trying to make it accessible for the English-speaking audience.
Absolutely.
And that, I think, has gained a modicum of respect in the industry and among the fans as well. But I think voice acting overall within the industry has risen in stature, shall I say.
Absolutely. I think that's definitely true in that regard. And as you were mentioning about before with getting like really big celebrities to be involved in a lot of voice acting work, but as you mentioned about, of course, with the whole like dub versus sub sort of thing, which I have seen a lot of discussions about that over the internet and stuff. And I'm going like, it's just a matter of personal preference. And for me personally, I've watched like a lot of dubs over the years of like even just one series that's gone through so many redubs over the years, and I go, I love both of these for completely different reasons in that regard. And for me, and I will continue to say this, and I know many of my listeners will have heard me say this 1,000 times, but when comic conventions come back, if people were to ever ask me, why do you go to comic conventions? I said I go to meet the voice actors. They're my rock stars right there.
Oh.
So that's it right there. And I say, for myself, like, the dub performances are absolutely fantastic, and for me, like, I understand the whole dub versus sub side of thing. I understand in that regard, because in some cases, like dubbed performances, for example, in some cases that tends to happen if you're playing like an anime that like has to be watered down to like certain audiences. Like they have to edit out parts of it that they feel like, oh, that's good, oh, that's too grotesque for like those audiences there, but you're removing something that's essential to the story in that regard. I've seen that happen quite a fair few times. So I understand that whole dub versus sub side of things, but it doesn't need to blow up into a full-on discussion, into a full-on argument for it. I think it's just totally unnecessary.
Yeah, I think there's room for both.
Absolutely. And without getting into any spoilers, what's next for Jamieson Price for the fans to know about?
Oh, without doing spoilers. Well, I'm working on a video game that we hope will come out soon. I mean, COVID and the whole lockdown just put the kibosh on a lot of things. Um, but it looks like a really fun video game. I'm one of the player characters available in it, and I'm really looking forward to it coming out. But we're still in the recording process, so I don't know when it's going to come out. I'm hoping this year. I think it's supposed to come out last year, but then we couldn't record. Let's see. And well, actually, I think next month at some point, something will come out for Amazon's Alexa or Amazon Echo that I participated in. I can't say a whole lot about it, but I did some recording for Amazon for their Alexa, and it's not the voice of Alexa by any means, but it's something that is on it. I think it's a game or something. It's some new content that they're working on. Again, they don't tell us a whole lot, but I recorded some stuff that's supposed to be on the Alexa, the one with the video screen.
Right.
So it has to have a video screen, whatever it is. The Alexa thing.
Fantastic. That's absolutely wonderful. And final question, what do you think Chad Saito would say if he was in Australia?
Oh, oh, have different, especially when you're doing a recurring character, you will have a trigger phrase. Now, the engineer will usually play you back a sample of what you did before so you can get back into the voice. But as an actor, you work on those, the trigger things too. I can come in prepared. And for Chad, it was something he said, I can't remember if he actually said this, but he said, hey, I can see my house from here. And I'd get into his character. Just kind of like a little bit of surfer dude. Yeah, I can see my house from here. I remember that was my trigger phrase for him. So, that's what he'd say in Australia.
No, that's absolutely fantastic. That's just wonderful. Jamieson Price, thank you so much. It's been an absolute honor.
Oh, thank you, Simon. It's been a lot of fun.
My pleasure. And is there anything else you would like to say to the fans out there in Australia and in the world?
Oh, well, thank you for listening and watching and helping us, make this world come alive and work. It's just, it's been a joy to work on and to be a part of.
Absolutely. It's definitely true. And thank you for helping to bring this to life for all of us out there as well. It's just fantastic.
Thank you.
Well, guys, if you'd like to find out more about Jamieson Price, you can check out the links which I'll put to in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe to HannaTalk, click that bell for notifications, and be sure to comment below if you have any requests or suggestions. Thank you all so much for listening. This is Simon and Jamieson Price signing off. Bye for now.